This show is proudly supported by Habitats at Home, Australia's leading PVC reptile enclosure specialist. Check them out on Instagram and Facebook at Habitats at Home, and be sure to visit habitatsathome.com.au if you're in the market for a new PVC reptile enclosure or other reptile accessories. Massive thanks to Tyson over at Habitats at Home. We'd like to thank our podcast sponsor, Bay, reimagining reptile keeping through innovation. They combine quality, design, and function to create high-end 3D printed reptile products. And if you've got a unique setup or problem, they'll craft a custom solution made just for you. Check them out on Instagram at Bay. This show is proudly supported by Dan from Red Earth Reptiles. If you want to drool over some of the best looking green tree pythons in the country, check out Dan on Instagram at red_earth_reptiles. Alright, g'day and welcome to Under the Heat Lamp with Joe Mack. Today's episode number 22, and today's guest is Asher from Gondwana Geckos, mate. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, doing really well. I was just writing some notes down before I got started, and I wanted to say, great name. I really like
Thank
the
you.
alliteration that you've used with Gondwana
Yes,
Geckos.
that's what I went for.
Yeah, is there any other meaning behind that, or
Um,
just a fun name?
well, so I grew up in Gold Coast hinterland, so it's all Gondwana, the sort of habitat there. It's like the Gondwana relics.
Yeah.
I guess it's just from that, and then the main focus of me has always been leaftail geckos, and they've always been associated down the east coast with the Gondwana forest. So that's mostly where it came from.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's unreal. It's great. So you grew up in the Gold Coast, and there's obviously a fair stack of reptiles down there as well. Good herping
Yeah.
as well if you get into it.
Oh, yeah.
So, would you care to give us a rundown on sort of your history with reptiles?
Yeah, so growing up, like up until 10 years old, dad traveled with work. So we lived in Christmas Island for a little bit. And I remember catching
Oh,
wolf snakes
crazy.
there.
Yeah, that's
And I
awesome.
think that is sort of where, I always liked dinosaurs, but I think that's where reptiles specifically took sort of my passion. Because we went from there catching wolf snakes when I was like 5, 6 years old to Sydney, and I was catching blue tongues and broad-tailed geckos in the backyard, and then up to Tambourine Mountain, and obviously heaps of reptiles and just wildlife up there. Spent a year in Darwin, so obviously it really ignited then. And then
Yeah.
when we moved back down to the Gold Coast, that's when I got my reptile license and my first bit of dragon, and just that was it.
So yeah, mate, that's a pretty bloody roundabout way. That's you've got a bit of a taste for a bunch of different areas and things, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
the captive stuff started off with just a plain old beardy.
yeah, just a plain beauty. And then it stayed fairly like standard. And back then it was also just pet shop animals I was getting because I didn't know, like I was only 13 at this stage. I didn't know you could go and get all these other things that weren't in a pet shop. So started off with beardies and blonde spotteds. Um, and then after having those for a few years, I found out about Danny Brown and got my first Gillen's monitor from him. And then started getting carpet pythons and a few other things. And yeah, getting a bit more of an eclectic collection.
Yeah, awesome. So how long ago roughly was that?
I think I was 15, so would that have been like 2009?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh, so we're about the same age then. Yeah, cool. And so a Gillen's monitor is pretty cool thing to keep back
Oh yeah,
then. Like
yeah,
I was fish tanks in my high school years. It was just aquariums. I wouldn't have even known what a Gillen's monitor is.
yeah.
Um, but yeah. So what else were you keeping back then?
I had a lot of jungles. I still actually have one, which is the only snake I have now is a Palmerston jungle, who I got when,
Cool.
yeah, I got her in 2009, I think, as a hatchling. And I'll hold on to her until she passes away. She's the only snake I've
Yeah.
decided to hold on to. But yeah, a lot of jungles. I had inland carpets. I then got my black-headed monitors. I still have one of the males. That was it in 2011. I got him. Um, and then it became, I guess I couldn't really decide what I wanted to keep. So I was keeping a bunch of carpets, a bunch of monitors. I had a lapids for a little bit. Um, I got my first geckos in, I think it was 2013, some southern spotted velvets. Um, I had stuff like Epsisolus and the Primordius and Brevicorda. And then in about 2015, I got my first T positive Simpsons python. And then I hatched a clutch of them. I had a het female and a visual male, and hatching the clutch where you didn't know what you were going to get. And that sort of made me want to get more into it. I could sort of understand where a lot of the morph critters get excited about that.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
focused on stimmies for a little bit, just stimmies like wheat belts, and I had a few different localities and just some polygenic traits, nothing too fancy apart from the T positives. But then, year after year of assist feeding or force feeding hatches, and I just got sick of it, realized I didn't really enjoy that side of it. So I sold them all and thought about what I wanted and went through the field guide, highlighted a couple of geckos and stuff, and looked around for them. And that's when I started getting them. Got the helmeteds first, and I think some beaded geckos, and then the leaftails, chameleon geckos, and whatnot. And started getting all these species that I had found in a field guide that I wanted to keep.
That is an awesome way to do it. I think that's probably the first time I've heard of someone, picking species that they would like to keep through the field guide. That's very cool. And
Yeah.
and obviously, if anyone listening seen your Instagram, it's Gondwana Geckos, they would know that the you predominantly keep sort of lesser known species, or
hmm
maybe well, you've got definitely a good collection of underappreciated species. That's for sure.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for sure.
what what species are you keeping currently?
So I've got Asper, Cinctus, and then I've got the chameleon geckos, the northern leaftails, beaded geckos, helmeted geckos, jeweled geckos, northern spiny tails. I've got the northern velvets, box pattern geckos. I think that's it. And then I've
It's a
got
solid.
the Tristis and Rosenbergs outside, and then the jungle, and that's it.
That's amazing. That's a huge collection of geckos. And I did want to ask, what's your husbandry like? Like you're based in Southeast Queensland still.
Mhm.
So I guess what sort of temperatures and humidities are you keeping for your gecko species? Do they all Are they all in the same room, and are they sort of okay with like ambient temperatures and things? Or I'm not really sure. I don't really keep many geckos, so
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear.
No, they're all in the same room, which makes it a challenge. Obviously, having like your chameleon geckos and your leaf towers that can't handle too much heat, and then having stuff like your Strophuris, which have a lot of heat and need a lot of heat. And what I've done is sort of worked around it with the way I set up the enclosures where the cooler climate species, they're down the bottom, and then it sort of works up to your warmer climate stuff all the way up the top. So all the heat does travel up, and then naturally you just have your heat rising, and it works out pretty well doing it that way. No heating whatsoever for any of the leaf tails or chameleon geckos. They just sort of sit at, well, right now it's 27.5 at about 5 foot off the ground, so it'd be about 26 at the most where they are at ground level.
Wow.
Um, and then I use little halogens for stuff like the stripes, and I've started using halogens for the helmets and beaters. I only ever used to use heat cord and UV lights, but now I've started sticking in the little dichroic halogens on them, and I've seen them come out and bask, which so I'm thinking I'm gonna make the switch and for all my geckos just use that for heating.
Yeah, that's awesome. So they're like a little 25 watt um sort of
Yeah,
halogen thing.
these little
Oh,
things here.
sick. Oh, look at this guy. Show
Uh,
and tell. That's awesome.
those there. What is it?
Yeah, great.
35 watt.
And they've just got the little prongs, and they just
Yeah,
poke up into,
two little prongs,
yeah,
and then they just stick up into the transformer power pack thing.
into the little fixture. Wow, that's great. And that's really all you need. What sort of temperatures are you achieving in the basking spots with those lights? And I guess sort of how far are they above the basking spot?
So the stripes, I have them getting pretty close. Like they can get easily within 10 centimeters of those little bulbs. And I have measured it at about low 40s before at that point, with them basking under it as well. Um,
Wow.
stuff like the box patterns, the beadeds, and the helmets that have it on them, like they're not. Well, they're when they're basking through the day, they're really only just sticking the head out of their hide. So that would be a good 30 centimeters at least away from the heat light.
Yeah,
So they're
more
probably
of a
only
cryptic
getting
basking.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
And I wouldn't imagine it's getting much more than sort of the high 20s where they're sitting. Um,
yeah, which is what
and then
kind of
at night,
what you'd expect. Yeah,
exactly, it's what you want. And then at night
but
time, no heating, no lighting, and it this time of year normally dips down to, I think last night we got down to about low 20s, 24 at the most. Um, some nights it
yeah.
gets a bit warmer this time of year.
And is that pretty standard? Like in your warmer months, will it get warm? Like, will the overall nighttime temp stay any higher than that, or is that pretty standard?
We're in a sort of cold week at the moment. Our nights have been
Okay.
like outside, our nights have been dropping down to like, I think 14, 15 this week, which is not
Wow.
normal for this time of year down here.
That's free. Yeah, that's freezing.
Yeah, it's yeah, really cold. Had a jump on last night, which first time I've wanted to jump in November in I don't know how long.
Yeah, it's the
Um,
middle of November. That doesn't make sense.
exactly. Yeah. But no, normally we're sort of mid 20s outdoors.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. And so those Strophuris or the is it Ciliaris, the northern spiny tails
Yeah.
that you keep? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so different, such different behavior. They'll sit out on those little twigs and I guess naturally, are they? Is that what they're doing throughout the day? Just sitting up on those little sticks and just copping it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the cool thing about them is all their organs are encased in like a black sac, which protects their organs from UV damage. So they've fully adapted and
Right.
fully evolved to just being exposed to the sun all day.
Fucking 40
Um,
degrees,
yeah,
just
just getting
absolute like
blasted.
blaring sun.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's funny because of all the stripes I've kept, with the exception of the jewels, the Ciliagris are the only ones I've seen consistently sitting out under the heat through the day. I've seen Williams, I do it for a little bit, but a lot of the time they'll hide away through the day. The golden tails I've had, they don't spend much time at all through the daytime outside, like out under the heat.
Yeah.
And the jewels they're normally just in the grass clump, which I've positioned under the heat anyway, so they don't.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
like they're
yeah.
actively seeking it. That's just where they are.
Yeah, so that's just it's just yeah, I wonder if it's not it's just more of an adaptation to just deal with the conditions that
Hmm.
they are presented with naturally.
Yeah.
I wonder if then physiologically for them they require it for
Mm,
like function or if they'd be okay just with regular old, ambient temps
like
and not
ambient.
being
Yeah.
just blasted.
Well, I know they
But
can see a little bit into the infrared spectrum. Not that I think that is necessary for them to survive. It's obviously one of those things where you have to choose, I guess, like surviving or, thriving and doing well. Um,
yeah,
but it probably helps them with, I don't know, like, because I've always kept them together in substantial sized groups. It probably helps them
yeah,
sort of see each other a bit and sort of communicate or know how to respond with one another. That
yeah,
plus the
okay.
UVA. So, but apart from that, yeah, I don't know if you kept them at ambient, what you'd see, what sort of behavior you'd see. Maybe they would
Yeah, it'd
hide because
be
there's no need to
interesting.
come out.
Yeah, yeah, true. Or if they're just like other reptiles and it takes a damn long time for us to be able to see any change in anything,
Well, that's it. Yeah.
they might they might just carry on and just not be fussed as well.
Though that
Um,
being said, when I first started keeping, what was it? It was the helmeted. I kept them under LEDs, and I'd never see them at all through the daytime. And then pretty much within at least a month, I'd say a month or two of putting UV on them, I'd start seeing them late morning, or sorry, before like 9, so not too late in the morning, and early evening. They'd come out and use the UV.
wow, that's sick. So, what lighting are you running on all of your geckos at the moment?
So it's all in terms of UV, it's all T5. It was Arcadia, but I'm slowly making the switch to the new Exoterra bulbs. Um, so I've got that for UV, and then just whatever relative spectrum of it, or not spectrum, but intensity for each species.
Yeah,
And then I've got a 4,500 Kelvin LED over all of them. So that's what's on at the moment, which sort of they'll come on first to emulate like a twilight, so sunrise or sunset.
Yeah.
And then an hour after that, the UV flicks on. And then yeah, just those little halogens for the heat for the ones that I have
Yeah.
them on.
Do you alter your photo period as seasons
hmm
change?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm using Grid Connect, which allows me to sync it with my weather app, so it can. I set it so UV comes on. I think it's like an hour and a half after sunrise and an hour before sunset. And obviously that changes throughout the year with the weather. So yeah,
Yeah. That how good is that system?
I
I've
love
not
it.
used it. I've not used it to be fair, but
Yeah,
I've heard about how good it is. You just sync it up with your other app, and it comes on with the sunrise and goes off with the sunset.
yeah.
Fucking amazing.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so good. I've moved around a bunch. I've moved pretty much yearly for the last like 4 or 5 years, but I bought this place and I'm not moving. So maybe it's time for me to set up my I did use Grid Connect just timers, but
Yeah.
maybe it's time to set up the Grid Connect weather function. Maybe it
Oh, you can
is.
do
Maybe
so
I'll do
much.
that.
Like, so I don't personally use thermostats at all for anything.
Yeah.
What I do is I have the little Grid Connect climate sensors,
Yeah.
and I've got a few positioned at different levels. So ground level, up at sort of mid level, and then one up the top. And what you can do in the app is when, say, the ground level one reaches X temperature, I'll get a notification. So I can then go on the app and turn heat off or whatever. But if it then gets too hot, so say I don't have phone signal or I can't get to my phone and turn stuff off, if it then gets to a certain higher temperature, it just automatically cuts all power to the system.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
how did you go like programming that in? Was it relatively straightforward, or did you find it was a bit of a headache actually going through the app and figuring out how to
Yeah.
do that?
The first time I did it was a bit difficult. And now I
Yeah.
sort of worked out a system where you can group things together. So what I was doing before is I was doing for this climate sensor for this heat light, and then for this climate sensor for this heat light. But I've realized you can do all these heat lights for this climate sensor, which makes it so much easier.
Yeah, and
Um,
when you say like these heat lights, are they all just plugged into the same board? And
no,
then
no, and that's why initially I had to do it separately because
okay,
they're all different grid connect boards, but they all feed off the one hub, so they all
right.
have the same signal. So then when you go into the app and say when it hits, I think I've got it for ground level when it hits 28 degrees Celsius, turn heat lights off for strofes, or when I had Kinordrum for Kinordrum, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, right. That's cool. That's very fancy technology,
Yeah.
but it's also it's like a basic concept, but it's so very valuable and helpful.
Oh, yeah.
What
Well,
a great little
I
fail
find
safe.
controlling ambient probably a little better than how a lot of the traditional thermostats work. I see a lot of people, and this is obviously my opinion, and people can do it however they want to do it, but I see a lot of people, they'll get the sensor, they'll stick it right under the heat light, and then they'll control basking temperature. Whereas my opinion is that the sensor should go down the cool end, and you should be controlling your cool end temperature.
I
Because
concur, my friend.
that's what they can't escape. They can escape basking temp, no issue. They'll just move down the other end. But if that's too hot,
Yeah.
they can't escape that. And that's what I think people need to control.
Yeah, agree, absolutely. I have not been one to use many thermostats.
hmm
I'm slowly changing that, but again, I talk about this all the time. I keep mostly tropical species in a tropical climate where I don't really run much
Yeah.
auxiliary heating, but I've got a couple of species here that do like to be a bit warmer. And same thing, I run the thermostat at the cooler end, because as you said, that's the temperature that they can't escape. So
Yeah.
I think it's important for people when keeping and developing skills. It's important to have the skill of knowing what your heating elements are truly capable of. If
Yeah.
that makes sense, like you need to know if you've got a 60-watt heat lamp on, a 4 foot enclosure, leave it on for 12 hours. You've got to be able to sort of have a bit of an idea in your head how hot the hot side's going to be, how hot the cool side's going to be, how long it's going to stay that hot for, how long it's going to take to cool down, and all those sorts of things are
Definitely. Yeah.
important, and you should factor those into your decision making when it comes to heating.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
uh,
I think
well,
people also need to, sorry, I think people need
you're
to
right.
look more at the animal's behavior than look at numbers. And sort of think like, okay, like my bearded dragon's been sitting under the heat light for, half an hour non-stop. probably isn't getting hot enough if it's been under there for that long.
Yeah,
Or my bearded dragon's never under the heat light, probably getting too hot. Instead of
it could be
thinking,
too hot.
oh,
Yeah.
you know, should it be 37 or 38 or 40 to bask under or whatever? I think it's probably a bit more important to go off what the animal's doing and then use the numbers as a guideline.
Agree. And the only way for you to be able to understand your animal's behavior is by spending the time,
Hmm.
taking the time and looking at it and paying attention to what they are doing in
Yeah,
terms of your husbandry and figuring out what decisions you need to make.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
there was a local shop in Cairns for quite a while. I'd walk past it pretty frequently. They had a 4 foot glass fish tank with a 120-watt heat bulb blowing over the top of this bearded dragon, and the,
Yeah,
the thing was always in the water bowl. I
yeah,
was like, it could be too hot.
yeah, potentially.
There's a chance. The ambient temperature is like 33. I don't
Yeah,
think he needs. I don't think he needs that heat lamp too much. But
no, yeah,
but and it's funny. I always talk about this too. Is that the husbandry requirements change massively geographically depending on where you
mm,
are. Like
exactly.
we were saying just before we started recording, is I couldn't achieve the lower temperatures that you have where I am, and so to mitigate that issue, to mitigate that being an issue, I just don't keep species that require cooler
Yeah,
temperatures.
and that's it. It's
It
sort of
makes
like
sense.
where I am, if I want to keep leaf towers, I keep them at ambient temperature. I don't do much else. If you were to do it, if you wanted to keep them, you'd probably need to run aircon or fans or something. And then if someone further down south, they might need to run a little bit of heating, even. So
Yeah,
it is going to, yeah, how you keep any animal is going to depend on where you live.
definitely. And I have recently probably maybe potentially been a bit hypocritical by getting some stripe-tailed monitors earlier in the year, and
Hmm.
I learnt recently that they just don't deal with the humidity very well, and that's probably something that I should have taken more consideration with when getting those lizards. I've since
Yeah,
moved them; they've gone down to Sydney, which is great. I think they'll do significantly better down there than they were doing up here, but I think that's probably something to add into the decision matrix when you are wanting to get a new species is
yeah,
what
definitely.
conditions they
And
require and
look,
if you
I've
can
I've done
provide
the
them.
same. When I lived on Tamarind Mountain, it's the climate is always humid, and it's never that hot, so it's always like a cool, damp air. And I still decided to go ahead and get an inland taipan once, and always struggled to keep it well in that climate. I had to move it on. It just did not work out well.
Wasn't liking it, hey?
No,
Yeah,
hated
right.
it. Its sheds were always messed up. It always had, I wouldn't call them lesions, but they were getting close to the point where there'd be like a lesion on the back. And I think it was just way too humid, too much moisture in the air for the snake.
Yeah, that checks out because obviously where they're from, there's fucking
Hmm.
no, no
No,
humidity.
no.
No, it's desolate. Um, Geez, I'm having a brain fart. I was going to say something. That's all right. Um, so you keep a lot of stuff bioactive and or
Yeah,
naturalistic. I guess how
yeah.
how would you describe your keeping style?
Um, what can be bioactive, like easily bioactive, will be bioactive. So, all the sort of desert species. So, um, not so much stuff like the Ciliabris because you can keep them more in a sort of tropical setup. But stuff like the helmeted, the beaded, the box patterns, they're all what I'd call naturalistic, where they're just, the only plants in there are dried up grass clumps, but there's nothing artificial in it. It's all real bits of wood, stone. Though I do use PVC or conduit for them to hide in, which I beg under the surface and then sort of blend it in using driftwood or whatever. Um, that would be the only artificial thing in there, apart from the background as well. But then stuff like the leaftails, chameleon geckos, what I intend to do for the northern velvets and the asper, they'll be able to be bioactive and they'll be able to put plants in there, have a nice deep substrate level and do it sort of the best I can for bioactive.
Yeah, very cool. So, um, I guess for anyone listening who might not be aware, is what's the difference between naturalistic and bioactive?
Naturalistic isn't an ecosystem. It's more of a aesthetic or a visual. So when you have bioactive, it's a full-on system. You go through basically the nitrogen cycle like you do with a fish tank. and you have your live plants in there. They're contributing to the nitrogen cycle. You have all your microorganisms, so your isopods, springtails, whatever else you might have in the soil, earthworms. And it's a whole system that breaks down waste, and also feeds, sort of, it turns the waste into a fertile matter that the plants can live off. And it's like being outdoors, but in naturalistic, you don't have the live plants, you don't have the isopods, the springtails, all that sort of stuff. So you're still maintaining it, I guess, similar to how you would a hospital tank or a stair drive tank, where you're still doing your spot cleans and you're still wiping down your bits of wood and whatnot. Um, but you have the visual look that you would have of a bioactive.
Yeah, so naturalistic means clean and poop, and
Mhm.
bioactive means less cleaning poop.
Let's clean. So you still need to do a bit of cleaning, like on my leaf towels. And you'd probably have seen it with the leaf towels you have at work, is they trap a lot, and it's big, and it can be, well, with the number I have in some of my enclosures, it can be a bit much for just the isopods and sprint towels to handle on their own. So once a week or so, I'll go through and I'll pick out some of the poo just to lighten the load for the cleanup crew. Skin sheds and stuff I leave in there because gecko skin's soft, quite easy to take care of if you're a little
Breaks down
isopod.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is amazing the sheer size and stench of a
Oh, the
leaf-tailed
stench
gecko
is
shit.
full on.
Sometimes I'm like, dude, how did you get that? How
Yeah.
did you work that thing out, man? That is rank. But the I was gonna say let's talk about chameleon geckos, but I want to ask before we get to that. What are some benefits and or disadvantages to both of those keeping styles, in your opinion?
The benefits would be, well, apart from the visual look, like, I think it looks a lot nicer, or it's a lot better for you being able to look at a nicely set up naturalistic enclosure rather than looking at, for me, I wouldn't like to look at newspaper, like plastic hides, plastic plants, those sort of things. I'm not a fan of it. I like having an actual piece of nature in the house. For the actual animals, the benefit would be the functionality of it. So they have a lot more opportunity to behave naturally in something like that, something that they've evolved to handle. So when I do naturalistic, I take, I guess, that one step further where it's not just natural bits of timber, natural whatever in it. I'm actually looking at what they live in, what sort of stuff they have in their region and their habitat, and I'm trying to emulate that in captivity. Same with the bioactive, when I'm choosing plants, I'll only choose plants that are native to where that animal is found. I'm not going to go and stick in like pothos or anything like that. That's not native to Australia for that species. So I think it gives the animal a lot more opportunity to behave naturally because they're living with their natural environment that they have over however many, thousands or million years evolved to adapt to. Um, Bioactive with the cleaning side of it, I don't always see as a huge advantage over naturalistic because you still have to do your own maintaining. And the time you save in cleaning poo, you're normally spending in maintaining plants, and it's almost like having a garden indoors. So you're trimming, leaves off stuff, and you're also trying to keep a plant alive as well as the animal alive. So there is probably still as much work in bioactive as there is in any other style of keeping. It's just a different type of work you're doing.
Yeah, there's that trade off there. You're right, definitely. Not only are you trying to keep the animals alive, but you got to try and keep those
Hmm.
plants alive too, if you can.
Yep, and you need to
Uh,
not just know about reptiles, but you need to start to become a sort of plant nerd and learn about plants and how much light they need, how much water they need, all that sort of stuff, which I've been learning. And I like my plants. I'm into my plants. I keep a lot of orchids and stuff, but doing all this stuff for, indoor enclosures, it's been a whole new thing for me, learning what
oh,
they
it's
need. And
yeah, totally different.
yeah, yeah,
Well, that was great. Thank you for that. Thank you. It was a
that's
great
good.
little rundown. Um, how cool are chameleon geckos? They're
I
so
love them. They're
sick.
awesome.
They're great. What is your favorite thing about chameleon geckos?
The tail, like visually, the tail, 100%. And not just like looking at the tail, but what the tail does. So they'll sort of, when they approach another chameleon gecko, their tail lifts up and they start waving it back and forth. Like just that whole sort of mesmerizing action of like a black and white tail moving in that motion. It's sick.
Very
And
cool.
then stuff like I've never seen it in person, but the whole fact that they'll drop a tail and the tail produces an audible noise, that's cool. No, I don't know of
Yes.
any other gecko that does that.
No, that little organ in the tail is called a notochord, and
Yeah,
when they regenerate their tail, it also has a notochord in it as well.
so I
And
didn't know that I was gonna. Yeah, so it does have.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, I heard that or read that somewhere. Who knows if it's true or not? But
yeah.
um, apparently, I haven't had a chameleon gecko lose its tail in front of me. But apparently, it makes the same noise as a chameleon gecko,
Okay, that's yeah,
which is just an absolutely wild adaptation
yeah.
for a predator prey response. Like, hey, don't come for me. Here's a piece of me that makes the same noise. You can have that instead. I'm
I know. I think yeah,
fucking
like this high contrast sort of noisy thing. Obviously, a predator is going to go for that over, the bland, not colorful body. So
yeah, that little thing that's just skeeting off the side there
yeah,
through the leaf litter. Um,
yeah,
am I correct in saying that they are the most primitive or basal of Australian geckos?
they would be. Yeah,
Yeah, they're so cool, man. And they're
that
obviously
yeah,
only wet tropics native, endemics.
yeah.
Um, I don't think they're found as far south as Paluma, but they're definitely around the Cairns region. Wooranoora National Park. They're everywhere. Have you been up to find them,
I haven't, unfortunately. No, I do want to go up there and find them. But I'm still yet to see one in the wild.
mate? Let me know. We can do it. We can
Oh
sort it
yeah,
out.
I'm keen. Yeah,
Easy. Yeah, they're very cool. You've got a number of them down there at your
yeah. I've
place.
got a few. Like adults, I've got oh, at least half a dozen, maybe a few
Yeah.
more.
If you've got a
I've got a
count, that's
little
that's good.
hatchling in front of me, who is normally out, but I've got a little hatchling just on my desk in front of me. Um, but yeah, got a fair few of them.
Yeah, but are you feeding out predominantly crickets to the geckos?
No, well, I'd say crickets would make up maybe 60% of the diet, so it's the largest portion.
Yeah.
Um, I do a lot of so for store-bought stuff, your easy to get stuff. So obviously your crickets, your woodies. I've just started breeding my own dubia. Not suitable for all the geckos, obviously because of the size, but
Yeah.
um, pretty handy to have. Pretty easy to breed the dubia. I do black soldier fly larvae, and when I buy the tubs, I normally split the tubs in half and let half turn into the flies and feed the other half out as worms. Um, I don't often do mealworm. If I do mealworm, well, now I won't do it at all. But when I did do mealworms, it was for angle-headed dragons and king mealworms, stuff I don't keep anymore. I would never do mealworms for the geckos. Um, and then I do the odd little wild insect. So it might be a little spider or a little whatever fly, something like that. Something I know that no one around here uses pesticides, so they're all
Yeah,
safe.
that's handy.
But yeah, I like to mix up the diet as much as possible. I was getting grasshoppers off Frizy, a year or two ago, and I haven't since. But I really like feeding them out.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no,
The
mixing up the diet as much as possible.
the grasshoppers really elicit a different response in a lot of
Oh,
monitors. Well, monitors and
yes.
and other lizards I've seen. They just go crazy for them.
No, yeah, with my Rosenbergs, they get excited for food, but I've never seen them actually run at full pace for food, except for when I chuck the hoppers in there, and they went berserk.
Yeah. Something starts
Uh,
flying, lizards just go,
yeah,
holy shit, I'm getting
yeah.
that.
Even stuff like I fed some small ones to the helmeted geckos, and
Oh yeah.
they went crazy for them.
Yeah.
They love them.
How cool!
Yeah.
It's so cool to see. This is like half the reason we do it. Watching these things do what they do is
Oh
the
yeah.
coolest. It's the
Yeah.
best. You know what really gets me is at work sometimes we've got frillies and their exhibits like 8 or 10 meters long or something, and when we throw crickets in, they'll jump off the top branch like 3 meters high, hit the
Yeah.
ground, and then run on their back legs all the way to the other side of the enclosure. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's it. That's the best. I love my
Yeah.
job. This is fucking
Well,
awesome.
I love even seeing like going back to the chameleon geckos. At night time, they'll all be on the ground. As soon as you chuck food in there, you'll see them all slowly find a vertical branch, climb up, and then turn around upside down and wait for food to go on them. It is sick seeing that.
That is sick. That is sick.
Yeah,
Do you think the chameleon geckos would be tolerant of warmer temperatures?
I'd say less tolerant than something like a leaf tail because they're
Okay.
like through the daytime they're hiding at ground level where it's a lot cooler, whereas your
Yeah.
leaf tails are hiding or escaping sort of the day a lot higher up, where it's probably a
Hi.
few degrees warmer than what chameleon gecko would have.
Yeah.
Um,
True.
yeah, so I think, well, that's how I keep them here anyway. I keep them, even though I keep them in the same enclosure, but I try and focus on that ground temp being as cool as possible. And I'm not too fussed about the upper part of the enclosure getting warm where the leaf tails are.
Gotcha. I'm just thinking. I don't need a chameleon gecko. I don't need a
No,
chameleon gecko. I don't need a chameleon gecko. Um. Hey. Why no mealworms for geckos?
hard to digest being the first thing.
Yep.
And there's not enough nutritional value in them to make it worthwhile feeding something out. So how low in calcium they are. Um, like obviously, if you spent your time gut loading them and then supplementing them, you could probably make them worthwhile enough. But when you have options like your black soldier fly larvae, which just naturally are so much more nutritious, and I may as well stick to that than doing a mealworm.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, something about the mealworms, they've got that sort of hard sort of shell or outer casing, and it's definitely a bit tougher to
There's
digest.
been
And
times like in the past I fed them when I used to have the granite belt leaftails and white berber. And this is
oh
going
yeah,
back like I don't know, 2014, 15. And I was feeding them mealworms back then, and I remember seeing them like at night time I'd chuck mealworms in there, they'd obviously eat them. And in the morning I'd look in the enclosure and there'd be all these regurgitated mealworms. And they obviously couldn't digest them,
yeah,
and just feed them back up.
yeah. Fair enough. That's good enough reason to not feed them out at least to that species.
Yeah.
Um, you got any desire to keep that? What's that? Is it Ovidicolus?
Yeah, your
Um,
Viticola spibrus,
yeah, that
the
guy.
granite belt 6 hour. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Any desire to keep them?
Um, when do you think this will air, this episode?
Next Wednesday. So
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I might have something in the works for them.
Very cool. Very cool.
But yes,
Yeah,
I do have a desire to keep them.
they're an interesting little thing for
They
sure.
are cool. Yeah, I'm really
Mon,
excited
mon,
to get some.
monotypic is always interesting. And you've already got
Hmm.
the chameleon geckos as well,
Yeah.
so they're great little things. You said Rosenbergs. Have you got multiple Heath monitors?
Just a pair, so male, female.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Um, Kangaroo Island. Yeah,
Oh, very cool. And they're kept outside.
they're kept outside. So the female I've had a long time now. God, I've had her
I
for I don't know how long, and she's pretty much lived outdoors since she was about a year and a half old. Um, so that was including when I was living up on Tambourine Mountain, she was outside. Then I moved to Ipswich. She was outside there, and now I'm on the south side of Brisbane, and she's outside here. The male I've had for 1 to 2 years, and yeah, that's a male there in that photo.
Oh, that's
Um,
the male. Okay.
that's a male. Yep, he's so
Yeah.
tame. That's the female.
Gotcha. They're gorgeous, man. And I
I love
imagine
them.
the KI ones wouldn't come around
Yeah.
too often.
No, well, yeah. So she was the first Rosenberg full stop I'd seen advertised, so I jumped on it, regardless of what locality she was, and. Now you seem to see a lot of the
Huh.
Western Australian ones, but you don't see too many of the KI ones available.
Yeah, right, yeah. Any chance of breeding them?
I've tried. Uh, she does my head in. I don't. Last year, it's just it's so annoying. So I tried for the season before. I paired them. Um, he mustn't have done the job because they were all just infertile. As soon as she laid them, they were completely deformed, and just looking at the color, you could tell they were infertile.
Yeah,
So last year, I saw a lot of good lockups, and I put a lot of effort into starving him through the winter, trying to make him, more of a fertile and a better partner for her. And I'd see them, yeah, mate a few times, and the whole courtship, which is cool. And then, yeah, she laid eggs, in the pouring down rain on top of her nest box.
Yeah, why wouldn't
So
she? Why
yeah,
wouldn't she
why
do
not?
that?
And they were fertile, but yeah, by the time I got
Uh,
home from work, her nest box is like it dips down, and the whole
yeah,
thing was a puddle of water.
full of water.
So yeah, I chucked them in the incubator to see what happened. They didn't last more than a week before going
I
moldy.
I didn't know this story. Sorry, I wouldn't have brought it up.
Oh no, it's fine. That's cool.
Maybe it'd be awesome to replicate them, man. They're beautiful
Yeah,
lizards.
I
Maybe next
wanna.
year.
Yeah, I'm not holding out this year because I just moved. Like I've only been in this house for a few months now, so I
Yeah,
wouldn't really expect them to do anything now this year.
yeah,
But next year definitely.
yeah. Sometimes a move can either absolutely throw things entirely, or it can just push them a little bit into
Yeah,
reproducing.
and
Um,
I've had that happen not so much with a move of house, but the first season I tried to breed my black-headed monitors, nothing was happening. And then I took them to an expo to put them on display, both of them, the male, female, and the whole expo non-stop. They're just mating.
oh, did you make people pay to see it?
I should have.
Gold
It
coin
did get me.
donation.
It got me best in show, but yeah, I should have paid people.
Best in show by default. You got
Yeah,
monitors fucking on the
yeah.
table. Ridiculous. So the Tristis they're outside as well. And have you got a pair of those or more?
No, I've just got the one male now.
Oh,
So
just the one male. Yeah, okay.
yeah, so he actually that same female. I've got them a few seasons back to back, and then one year for whatever reason he was a bit too aggressive with her, and he killed her, mating with her.
Yeah, yeah. I think quite a few of those. Actually, no, I'm speaking without actually having the experience to back that up. But I could definitely see Tristies getting a bit nasty and
Hmm.
toweling things up a little bit. We keep some Scalaris at work, and yeah, they definitely don't play nice with each other. And actually,
Yeah,
Rusties as well. We've got this Rusty at work that is just an absolute horse. This thing is
yeah.
like it'd weigh three times what the females weigh, and
Well, yeah,
he's just a raping machine. So
yeah,
he's been banished. He's in solitary confinement. That
yeah,
guy. While the ladies have fun on the big display. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, alas, I digress. So you keep a few things outdoors. How do you find that?
I love it. The whole leading up to that point is, well, I actually enjoy it, but I can see for some it would be tedious. So, when I moved to my Ipswich house, I didn't set anything outside for the best part of a year, and probably about once a fortnight, I took a photo of the backyard. And then at the end of it, I looked at where the sun was moving, and I could work out exactly where I wanted the enclosure to be. Since then, I've realized there's actually an app that you can just do that on. So when I moved to this house, because I didn't have any time or opportunity to have them indoors while I set things up outside, I had to get them outside pretty much straight away. And I found this app where you could select on, like, it's like, I guess I use a Google Maps overlay, but you can look at the way the sun travels at different times of the year over that property. So I
That's
use that to
sick.
work out where to
Did not
position
know
the
about that.
enclosures. No, no, so I was thinking, surely someone's done something by now for this. And yeah, enough Googling, I found it, and I forgot what it's
Do you know?
called though.
Oh,
I'll
well,
I'll
if you
have a
come up
look
with it,
tonight, and I'll put up on
yeah,
my I'll put a post up for it.
yeah, sweet. And I'll share it. I'll
But
share it on the when I post this episode too for sure. That's cool. That's
yeah,
awesome.
no, yeah, it came in. It was really useful. I think I'll still probably need to make some adjustments. And I've left enough space on either side of the enclosures to sort of shuffle them left or right. I don't think I'll have to go back and forwards because they're hard up against the house.
Yeah,
But yeah, right now, like what are we, November, and they've been out there since I think August, and it has been perfect. The whole time it's been perfect for them.
awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's what you want, and that's another thing too is seeing them natural, like monitor lizards outside. Seeing them bask under the sun is just
Hmm. Their
it's
colours.
unreal.
I don't know if you saw my post about the Tristus, how keeping him indoors for I think it was like 10 or 11 years, and like he was nice, but you know he was whatever, just a Tristus. and now having him outdoors, holy crap, his head is actually black, his body is colorful, like his color has changed dramatically, day and night.
Was it a recent post? I'll pull it
Mm,
up.
it'll be a few months ago, I'd say, maybe earlier this year.
Um, yeah. Anyway, I agree entirely. I quite often go to Aaron Hopper's place and I see how his prassiness look outside
Hmm.
compared to the prassiness that I work with at work, and
Yeah,
it's just they're worlds apart for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I can't find the post, and I'm just gonna keep scrolling, distracted by pretty lizards.
yeah.
Do you have a favorite species to keep?
Mm, I don't know. I love the tristis. I've always loved tristis. Like they're always been a favorite to keep and just like a favorite monitor, full stop. Um, Gecko wise, I'm liking the Cinctus. I've never been a huge fan of knobtails. I kept Levis for years and I thought, I don't know, they didn't do much for me. Um, but then, yeah, now I have the Cinctus and watching them, that's pretty cool too, but I really like the Cinctus.
The Cinctus, were they wheeler eye, and now they're
Yeah, they were. So they're the northern. So they were Wheeler-Dry cinctus, and they're the northern subspecies, and now
okay.
they've been elevated to a full species.
Yeah.
So you've got the
Whereabouts are
cinctus,
they
which
found?
up near the Pilbara region.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you've got your true Wheeler-Dry, which are your southern species.
Yeah, interesting. And well, I don't know what's good about them. I've got zero experience keeping knobtails, so
Yeah, they all do the same behavior, which is like the push-ups and the little, knob on the end of the tail twitches back and forth, which is all cool. What I didn't know about Cinctus is their color change. And through the daytime, or I haven't actually paid attention to notice if it's a daytime and nighttime color change or if it's just maybe temperature related or what. But they're obviously like the that sort of reddish color that you see with the black bands. But I've seen mine go full on white, like proper white, not cream, proper white with black bands. And I had no idea they did that, and I think that is freaking cool.
wow, that's fascinating. It'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see if there's any factors contributing, or if you can find some sort of correlation as to when and or why they're going through that.
Yeah, I need a because so the banded Asper do the same sort of thing where they'll either be like a low contrast or a high contrast. And I've noticed it's mostly daytime is low contrast, nighttime is high contrast. And I'm trying to work out if the Asper and the Cinctus do it at the exact same time.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Um, have you got any Asper with like a bit of attitude? Because
Uh,
I was
do they
doing
exist
some
without attitude?
well, I was doing some fauna spotter work a little while ago, and we'd
Yeah.
find Asper, and they would, you go to grab them, and they're like barking and throwing themselves at you, essentially.
Yeah, no, that's what these do. And I've had them since tiny little hatchlings. I don't handle the geckos, but obviously I pull them out on my hand for photos, so they've been exposed to some handling, and it doesn't matter what you do. As soon as I hear the little click of the latch on the enclosures,
They're
they get
upset.
up like as tall as they can, start pushing up, hissing like they hate to
Yeah,
exist.
yeah, right. So,
Hmm.
have you bred any of the Nephros before?
Just Levis.
Levis. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
You didn't want to ever get into the morph Levis.
Not so much. Like I don't have much against morphs. There's a lot of people doing it ethically, and it can be done ethically. But morph Levis, I'm not for some of them. I'm not overly drawn to. I like the panelists. I love them. I think they're cool. Um, and obviously I have the amelanistic velvet, but most of your northern velvet morphs are a natural curving morph anyway. Um, so it's quite a strong gene. What I don't like about Levis is more the husbandry rather than the actual morphs I have. And I think it's consistent along a lot of your smooth skin nefs, which is why I'm gravitating more to your pricklies or your roughs, so your Cinctus, your Asper. I mean, they're really the only ones that I'd probably get, but there's, your Amia, your Shia, and whatnot. But your smooth skins like your levis, I think that they're easy to keep, but you just don't see many people doing it properly. You don't see them keeping them in deep enough sand, wet enough sand on one side, dry enough sand. Like they need a lot of sort of little micro climates or micro habitats within the one enclosure. And when you have people keeping them, tubbed up in these tiny little, 45 by 30 or whatever they might be size tubs, you can't achieve that. You can't get the gradients that the nets need to do as well as possible. They'll survive in it, but they just won't do well. And that's where I don't want to work with them because they're not a species I want to be putting out there in large numbers. Where, what their care is like after they leave here, you don't know what it's going to be. You can vet someone as much as you want, but everyone knows what to say now, so vetting only gets you so far.
And they get you so far.
Um,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
I guess
Uh,
I didn't realize they had such sort of specialized care requirements. And is that to do with the smooth skin?
I don't know if it's because of the smooth skin or, well, I think what it is the smooth skin is the way they've evolved for the habitat they live in, and it's because of the
Right.
habitat they live in. Whereas all your rough skin species, so your Asper, Amiae, the Cinctus, and all that, they live in rocky outcrops, so they're not in sand, they're not living in high humid sort of little holes or shelters or whatever them, spider burrows or anything like that. Um, Obviously, they do seek out a microclimate with or microhabitat with high humidity. So under, a log or something like that, it's always going to be more humid there, and that's quite easy to achieve. You can always do a humid hide for them. But your levis, they want to dig. So having like your standard pet shop sort of type cave and filling it with peat moss or sphagnum moss or whatever you might do to make it humid, it's going to achieve the condition conditions they need, but it's not going to achieve the behavior they need to or they want to use to achieve that condition, if that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to
Absolutely. Makes
rather,
perfect
and
sense.
that's why they have that big fat sort of tail. And I believe it's why stuff like your Asper don't, is your levers are digging down and then they're sealing off the hole with the tail and it's keeping all the moisture in.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Um, But and
And
that's just my thing. Like, there's so many geckos, and like you said, like I've got a lot of the underappreciated stuff, and a lot of it really is like if you're keeping stuff at the highest level of care. A lot of the stuff I keep, I think, is probably easier to maintain than a levis. So like your helmetids, your beaded geckos, the box patterns, um, even like a leaf tail, if you have the right climate, they're probably a lot easier to keep at a higher level of care than keeping a levis at a high level of care.
yeah, gotcha. So it's easier to achieve that higher
Yeah.
sort of standard of care, I suppose. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's that's a very interesting concept, and obviously, we should all strive for the highest level of care that we sort of can
Well,
achieve for these
exactly.
animals.
Yeah. And it's the thing, like, I've heard it on another podcast. I think it was the guy from Wellspring Herpetoculture said that reptiles are a victim of their own success, and I've always repeated that since hearing it. Where they are, they can live in the most brutal, poor conditions and they'll survive. But it doesn't mean that it's good for them or they should be living like that. And that's
Yeah,
where you have something like a liver. It's like, yeah, sure, you can stick it in one of those, like those little reptile one glass cube enclosures, 30 by 30 by 30 or whatever it is. Yeah, they'll survive. They're not going to do well, but they'll survive.
yeah,
Um, and that's the difference between keeping them in something like that or setting them up in a 3 or 4 foot enclosure with, 5 to 10 centimeter deep sand and, keeping them well. So at the end of the day, they're both going to sort of live, but one's going to live a much better life than the other one.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I think that's also something to take into consideration in that decision matrix when you are coming up with the species that you are interested in keeping. Um,
hmm
and yeah, like you said, they're what did you say? They're a victim of their own success.
A victim of their own success. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. I had a mentor very early on in the piece who said that often reptiles will thrive and even reproduce in spite
hmm
of what we are doing,
hmm
and that sort of gets you thinking. Just because they're reproducing is well, that's sort of been the base level for a long time. Is that they're breeding, so
Yeah.
that means we've achieved ultimate care and they're reproducing for us, so we've ticked all the boxes and we're good. When in fact, Well, reproducing it can be a stress response, like the
Well,
ultimate
it can
stress
be,
response.
the adult animal thinking, crap, the conditions are so bad here. I need to sort of spit out as many offspring as
Oh,
I can and try and keep my species going.
yeah, I got to pass my genes, or I'm going to
Yeah,
fucking die because conditions are so bad, so
that's
bad
it.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's so much more to look at. Geez, it's a meaty topic, reptile
yeah.
care
Oh, you
and
can, yeah,
trying to do
really
the
go
right
into it.
thing. But there are some really good podcasts out there. Um, we haven't really gotten into it too much in this podcast or even this whole show at all. But there's some guys like the Animals at Home network
Yeah.
and those sorts of
Well,
guys. They
so,
definitely dive into it.
and that was my favorite podcast. Is it was on the Animals at Home network, and it was Project Herbiculture with Phil Leitz and
Oh, from Arabs
Roy
only. Yeah,
Blodgett. Yeah, I love
yeah,
that podcast. I don't think they do it anymore, but that was such a good podcast.
yeah. Those guys are passionate.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, like you said too. I think it's important. Even if you were to breed a bunch of levis and you want them, or regardless of what species it is, wanting them to go to the right homes where they will be cared for at least a standard of care of what you're doing is a tough one. So there's
yeah,
definitely an ethics around reproducing animals like maybe dugites or other brown snakes and associated species.
yeah. No, yeah, it makes it an issue, and it sort of makes it, well, it makes you really think about what you want to reproduce and put out there. And I guess
And
it's kind
why?
of and why. That's it. And it's sort of the reason why, out of all the leaf towers, out of all the Saltutrius, I chose Cornutus. Like, I love all the leaf towers. I would love to keep every single species there is. But some of them are so visually similar that for me, there's a point in keeping them, but there's no point in breeding them because why would you put out Muvritsi, KDA, Swaney when they're all virtually identical? The standard, your members of the public, they're not going to tell the difference, so you may as well just put out one. And I think Cornutus, with their size, the colors of their eyes, the colors they can be, like skin color, I think they represent the genus the best. And that's why they're what I've gone with to breed leaf towers, to put out there for people to get into leaf towers.
It's awesome to hear that you put in that level of thought before diving into a species like that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, no, because I'd love, like, I've thought about, I've had so many plans of getting white Berber again and getting Swaney and, getting the other leaf house species and breeding them. And then I thought, why? Like, why would I, how am I going to market the difference between all these different species? And why do we need, or why does the general public, in terms of the pet side of the hobby, need all these different species? They're more of like a collector's item. So I guess if you were to breed them, like Jason, he's done an awesome job with a few of the species, and that's fine. We all we need is Jason doing it, and all your collectors can have the species they want. But the last thing the hobby needs, because of how small the Australian hobby is, you don't need Jason doing it, and then you don't need me doing it, and you don't need, old mate doing it. Then you'll flood the market, and you won't be able to move them on.
Yeah, you won't be able to move them on to appropriate homes, man. Big
Mhm.
big respect. That's awesome. That's great. It's awesome to see that people actually care. That's um
Yeah.
that's impressive.
Well,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
what's ridiculous is that Phallurus amnicola, the
Uh,
riverine leaf-tailed gecko,
hmm.
which I have been lucky enough to go and find, got
Nice.
absolutely smoked by wasps on that walk. But anyway, um,
Yeah.
why are they all throughout collections in Europe and the US?
No, dude, like, why do they have vertebralis and what else do they have? They have stellatus. I've seen people keeping, I don't know what species it is, one of the tympanocryptus species, the earless
Yes,
dragons. Uh,
Tetraporophora. In the
is that,
US,
yeah,
this dude was like, "I've got 40 Tympanocryptus tetraporophora," and I was like, "Do ya? Do ya?
yeah.
Interesting." Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties with the recording that we did yesterday, so we lost a bit of Ash's footage from the end of the episode. So we'll wrap it up there, guys. If you're interested in checking out what Ash has got going on, he's on Instagram and Facebook at Gondwana Geckos. As for me, I'm on Instagram at joemac.uthl. And as always, thanks for listening. Feel free to reach out if you want to have a chat or anything like that. And if you've enjoyed the content, please consider liking, subscribing, and following along. Cheers, that wraps up episode number 22. Thanks very much, Asher. Really appreciate it. Cheers, mate.